The Navigating PVS podcast is for general knowledge and does not constitute medical advice. Please consult with a qualified healthcare professional for any health concerns. I'm Jen Joly, and I'm here with Lindsay Hughes, and we are recording this intro at the very end of a 2+ hour conversation because we just went running, and it was the first time that we really got to chit chat. It's so hard to create a sense of community because it's so rare. I think the
Yeah,
closest person I know that has PVS, like really as severe as Summer has PVS, is like probably 3.5 hours, 4 hours from me.
honestly, I made a couple mom friends on social media, and I couldn't handle it when the babies passed away. It was a gut shot, and I felt really guilty for being as affected as I was, but it's been really hard for me to be like, "Okay, I'm gonna reach out and make friends," just because my first couple experiences were so hard. Because it's like you have to accept that that's a possibility for your child, and that is just
When was the first time you really realized how fragile she was? And was that part of the initial birth NICU? And then was that different than when it was related to PVS?
Yeah. So she was born at 24 weeks. She was 530 grams or 535 grams. You know what? Wait, I have my booklet. On 11/10, she was born on 11/4. She was 455 grams on NICU day 7. That's when my journals start. Because somebody sent me this, like, oh, my kid was in the NICU. You need this. And this is like an 8-week NICU journal. I have 6 of them completely filled out, and there's all these little sections that you're supposed to fill out every day so that you remember stuff, and it really became indispensable, but in thinking about this interview, she was in the hospital for 19 days at the hospital she was born in, and then 322 days at CHOP. That's a lot.
2 years worth of journaling right there, pretty much, right?
When your kid is this complex, you have to have notes. If you don't, you're gonna be forgetting stuff. It's awful. But she was born so early because I developed really severe preeclampsia with absolutely no pre-symptoms. When you're pregnant and they go, well, preeclampsia, if you get a headache, you need to be aware of this, especially if it's a new and weird headache. I never got a headache. And I'm going, wow, I'm really starting to gain weight with this pregnancy because I'd been hideously sick the whole time. And I was like, wait, I'm not actually eating anything, but I'm gaining weight. This might not be great. So I ordered a blood pressure monitor on Amazon. And I remember this distinctly because Rob was annoyed at me for buying something that we didn't need on Amazon. And he's like, you always worry. I'm like, I know. And I do. I'm a worrier. So I took my blood pressure, and my blood pressure is usually like nothing. It's like 160 over 70 or something. And I took it and it was like 190. And I was like, that's weird. I wonder if this thing is broken. So I took his, and his was whatever the just middle of the road normal boring blood pressure is. And I was like, all right, maybe I had it on wrong. I did it again and it was a little bit higher. And I'm like, maybe I'm just anxious. So I called my sister-in-law who's a nurse, and she was like, look, call your doctor. So I called the doctor and he's like, it's probably nothing, just a flu. You eat a lot of salt. And I'm like, no, I can't really keep food down. And he's like, all right, well, we have somebody on call. So swing through the ER and they'll take a look at you, make sure everything's okay. Okay. So we go and they slap a blood pressure cuff on me. And I remember because Rob was like so anxious. We're driving to the hospital. He's like speeding. And we get there and they take me upstairs, slap a blood pressure cuff on me. And everybody just went really quiet. My blood pressure was 240 over 190. And I don't really remember much because they put you on this drip of magnesium of some sort that makes you incredibly sick and kind of delirious, and it's just not pleasant. I remember them putting the guardrails up because they thought I was gonna start seizing and fall off the stretcher or whatever it was that they're wheeling, and they're walking me down the hall, and people are starting to give me shots and stuff while we're moving, and I'm like, "This is probably not great." I'm looking at Rob, and he's just like somebody walked in and said, "We just got your labs back, and we're gonna need to deliver her today because your liver and kidneys are shutting down." He said, "Well, you've got about 20 minutes while we assemble everyone, and you can call your family." So we started calling our family, and I remember being nervous, but I don't think the reality of it had actually set in.
You're in shock.
Yeah, definitely, and also drugged. So I'm not sure
That's
how Rob felt, but I was just loopy as hell and just sort of like barely aware of what was going on. And then the next thing I know, we are running down a hall, and this magnesium that you're on makes you incredibly sick. And there's poor nurses holding something that I'm throwing up in. They're giving me a shot, telling me to drink something. And I'm like, why are you giving me a shot? And they're like, it's steroids for the baby's lungs. And I was like, you're going to have her out of me. And just like, why? And she's like, anything, it might help. It didn't occur to me, oh, this is a Hail Mary. Like, oh God, this is a me or the baby situation, and they've picked me. They get me in the room, and it dawns on me that there's a lot of people in the room. There were, I think, 18 people in the delivery room when she was born. So there's her team and my team. And they give me an epidural, and I've never been more scared in my life than sitting on the side of that bed. Rob's not there because they're making him gown up and scrub, and
Yeah.
everybody's very serious. It's terrifying, and I'm just like vomiting into this thing that this woman's holding while they try and stick my spine. Rob comes in, and I remember them taking her out, and I was like, "Is she okay? Is she okay?" Because she didn't cry. She's 24 weeks. And he stood up to look, and I don't know if he could see her or not, but then he came and he sat back down and he was like, "Okay, okay, okay." And there was like this moment where now I know they were trying to intubate her, but this was a level 3 NICU. They didn't have time to transfer me to a level 4 NICU for her to be born. This was like right now or you're gonna die, essentially. And they got her intubated, and they're like, "Okay, do you wanna take a picture?" And Rob handed someone his phone, and they took a picture through the top of the little incubator, I guess, that she was in, the little plastic box, and it looks like it had been used to hold T-Rexes. Like, it is so scratched up, this box. It's just, like, the weirdest photo because it's this tiny little bright red baby face with just scratches. She didn't really look human.
Yeah.
And I didn't get to meet her for 2 days because I was too sick to get out of bed and because I didn't stop bleeding from my C-section. And when they did finally say, "Okay, you can come meet her," I couldn't get out of bed. I kept fainting, and they kept having to, like, catch me and put me on oxygen. They finally got me in a wheelchair and went to meet her, and I just remember looking at her and being like, "Oh my god, she's so small." And you think about it and because you were there and you were in the room and you have one of those preemies that are the scary preemie pictures that they show. And she's at a hospital that is 20 minutes from our house. I can't drive. I'm hideously allergic to whatever it was that they used to sterilize you for surgery, CHG, I think it's called.
Mhm.
And so my entire body is covered with this horrible mystery rash that just is incredibly painful. That took me forever to figure out what it was an allergy to. So
Okay.
I'm like
That's fun.
going to the NICU to see my baby that is like this big that I can't touch because I don't know what this rash is and I'm not going to risk giving it to her, right?
Yep.
The doctors warned us. They said, okay, there's usually a honeymoon period of a few days where a baby born this early is kind of all right. And then we start to see what the problems are going to be. And they
Yep.
were right. She was great for a couple of days. And then,
Intubated.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah, she was intubated for 10 months. So all of this happens while she's intubated. Like everything happens while she's intubated. The first thing she developed was sepsis. I don't remember what the progression was, but there was something concerning. So they put her on antibiotics and she was okay.
Is she
And
still at
then
the original NICU, the level
yes,
3? Okay.
yeah, the level 3, and they kept her for 19 days. They were wonderful, dedicated doctors and nurses, they were incredible, but the level of expertise at dealing with babies this small was not in their wheelhouse. So, they do this thing where they have, like, rotations of doctors in the NICU, and you'll have one doctor overseeing the NICU for 2 weeks and one for I think
Yep.
that's how it is or whatever the time period is. So they rotated a doctor off and put a new doctor in, and he got there and took one look at her and was like, "Why is she still here? We need to get her to a level 4 immediately." And he had her transferred within a day and a half. Thank God, because it
Yeah.
probably saved her life.
Absolutely.
I remember at the first hospital, they were very much like, "All right, we need to get a PICC line and we're going to try and do it. And if we can't do it, we're going to have to transfer her." And I remember when we transferred her to CHOP, you have this terrifying day where your baby's being transferred, which you've had the scarier version of that with airlifting and stuff. This was just an ambulance across town. And we get to CHOP and the doctor comes out and he goes, "Oh, we just placed your PICC line." And I'm like, "Wait, you just got it? Like, this is novel. This is huge to me. You just placed a PICC line? That's amazing." And he's like, Yeah, we do
It's
this
a
all the
big
time.
line.
Yeah, and she was, like, in this fleet of 24-week babies, so they were very experienced with it, with what was going on, and they all had this was, like, their neonatology focus team at the CHOP NICU, so we had, yeah, a long time of that, it was wild.
Wow. I can't like, wow. I mean, I think our story is traumatic, but it's always cathartic to both express your story, but hear somebody else's story and you're like,
For sure.
okay, maybe it wasn't so bad. My water broke at 36 and 5. On the day movers were arriving to move us across state lines, like same
Oh,
metro,
nice.
but across state lines. And we had no towels left in the house. Like I literally was so unprepared. I did all the birthing classes and all those things, but my water broke and I had nothing to clean up amniotic fluid or, blah, blah, blah.
I'm picturing you with, like, half a roll of paper towels, like, "Shit,
Like,
what do I
what am
do?"
I gonna do? I had to
There's
call my
fun.
sister. I'm like, can you drop everything you had planned for today and come basically direct this entire move? We were so lucky. My water broke at 6:15 in the morning. Someone was delivered at 9:15
Holy
because
cow.
we arrived at the hospital. We called and they're like, okay, water broke, no big deal. Take your time. I was like, oh, I probably should have mentioned she's breech. And they were like, just kidding, be here in 45 minutes.
Just kidding.
Not Do not like if you start contractions, like get here as fast as possible. So when we arrived, all the scheduled C-sections for the day
Mhm.
haven't quite teed up, but everybody's arriving, doctors, nurses, surgeons, whatever. And everybody's drinking their coffee, hanging around. They're like, well, we got this lady right now who went into labor early and she's breech. Should we just take her now before all the scheduled C-sections of the day? So like crazy that water broke and 3 hours later Summer was delivered. Similar, didn't cry. And I remember just holding my breath. I felt like the whole room was collectively holding breath. In Lily's case, right? They know to expect this is a 24-weeker. Here we're 36 and 5. We're like pretty close to the finish
Yeah.
line. 2 days
Like,
later,
when is full term considered 37 weeks or 38?
37 is early
Okay,
term.
so yeah, you'd have
Right?
been
So
like
like we're 2 days
2 days,
shy.
yeah.
So everybody's kind of holding their breath. It was delayed, but then we got a cry. And I remember just kind of feeling relieved. Also, cut open. I'm also a puker, puking into the little stupid moon-shaped thing going
Mhm,
on your back.
mhm.
And just the experience of delivering a child and having them whisk away to NICU, like that's not unique to the PVS experience, right?
Oh,
There's
yeah.
so many conditions that mothers and fathers and babies experience this. So I'm in the mother and baby, she's in the NICU,
Mhm.
still a hall between them,
Yeah,
just got cut open, major surgery, and all I want to do is be with her, right? Like
yeah.
I'm just hustling. And day 2, I'm telling the nurse, I don't feel right. I feel so unwell. Something is wrong. I'm like, check my blood pressure, check this. This nurse had to sit me down and say, you are exhausted, you are sleep deprived. Please lay down and get some sleep. You cannot keep going like this. The experience of being separated from your child in those
Yeah.
first few years is so horrible. I would not wish
Well,
that on anyone.
I was so out of it the first few days. I've never been in a hospital before, I've never really been sick before, I've never spent a lot of time there. I was on IVs, like continuous IVs for, like, a week, and they make that tick, 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 tick sound? I know that now because I've been in the NICU forever with my baby. But I did not know that IVs made noise. And first time I used the call button in my entire hospital experience, right? To tell the nurse that I believed that they needed to hire a wildlife exclusion company because I thought there were squirrels living in the roof. I genuinely believed that there were squirrels living in the roof of this
Like, I really
between the 3rd and 4th floors, right? And that was the one time Rob left my side was when that happened, and I don't remember where he had gone to get breakfast or, I don't know, change clothes or something, poor guy. But the nurses pulled him aside and they were like, "We are really worried about her because she does not seem to have a grip of what's going on." And he's like, "Well, first of all, she's making a whole bunch of doomsday jokes." And they're like, "Yes, we're worried about her mental state." And he's like, "No, that's just her personality." And then they send a bunch of people in the room to do like a exam on me. The doctor turns around and looks at me and goes, "Are you seeing double?" And I was like, "How did you know?" And she was like, "Well, every time I come in the room, you close one eye and tilt your head to the side." Now, that landed me promptly in a CT machine because they were like, "We are concerned that you have had a stroke." Just like, "Fuck, this is great." It's just great. It's just what I need. So, yeah, the feeling of not being around the baby is not the one that I have from the first few days because I feel like I was barely human at that point.
A C-section is not for the faint of heart, and then you pour on that preeclampsia. I'm just
Yeah, it was a mess, but, like,
wow.
I just didn't have my brain. Like, I remember they put me in the CT scan and they did the CT scan, and that was before C-section number 2. So I came out and I had bled all over, like, the little thing that zooms you in and out of the C and I was, like, mortified. And I'm laying there covered in blood, mortified. Like, you'd think I would be nervous. "Hey, why am I still bleeding 30 hours after my No.
Oh.
It was not great. It was not great. 0 out of 10, except I got Lily, so
She gets transferred. She's 20 days old, and you've already learned what a PICC line is.
mhm,
It's
yep.
like
Yep. The difference between umbilical PICC lines and, where the PICC line can be and stuff like that. I was going to the NICU every day and I started reading her Harry Potter because I was like, we're going to be here a minute, girl. Let's start with book one. So the CHOP team comes to get her and they give us some information that's like, okay, when you get here, pull in over here by this road and then tell them this and they'll tell you where to go. I remember just being so scared because you have no control over this situation. We decided we were going to go get dinner to give them time to get there and unpack her. So we're driving there, and I had this moment of almost just as much panic as I had in the delivery room, where it's like, "Oh my god, this is literally the end of everything." And I went, "All right, well, I handle crises at work all the time, so I'm just gonna shift gears and approach this like it's my job." And I got off the phone with the person. I had been on hold for a second, they came back and we finished the conversation. I got off the phone. And Rob looked at me and he goes, "Did I just hear work Lindsay come out?" And I'm like, "Yes. Yes, you did, because that's how we're gonna have to deal with this if we're gonna be successful." And from then on, it was literally like, that is my full-time job.
yep.
And, you say it, but then if you put the structure that you approach your work around, like, okay, I need to know every single person involved in her care and exactly what their role is in her care and where their specialty is and what they're going to know about and what opinions they're going to have about the overall care thing. And man, we just hit it. It was, that's it. It was all encompassing for the next year. And the way that we were diagnosed with PVS was she couldn't come off the ventilator. She had neck 3 times and sepsis 3 times. So we had problems, right? Her intestines were not developed, her lungs were not developed. She had bronchopulmonary dysplasia, but her settings were never super high unless she was sick. So she'd get septic and she'd get really sick. She only had 1 cold the entire time we were in the NICU, but she was on nitric, she was on an oscillator, everything. Thank God that the time I got COVID, I didn't give it to her. Oh my lord. But
That was the drive from Florida with the
no, that was the second time. The first time I got COVID was Christmas Eve, where she was a month and a half old. And I had spent the last 2 days at her bedside reading Harry Potter and Southern Living, and I remember when I was reading it, there was another baby across the hall who never had family there, and that's the weird part about being at a hospital that is really good at what they do, is that they become a place for anybody. At the symposium, they said the average distance a family travels to get PVS treatment is 950 miles, right? And this kid across the hall didn't have PVS, but her family was far enough away that they couldn't come and see her. So they used to put her in a high chair in the doorway so she could see people walk by. And I pulled my chair back and I'm reading, and I was reading loudly so they could both hear me. I got home that night and I was like, man, my allergies are really kicking. And then I was like, do I have a fever? And you're not paying attention to yourself when your kid's sick. So I took my temperature and I had a fever. I DoorDashed a COVID test and it was positive. And I'm like, I have just spent 2 days at my micro preemie's bedside, who is a month and a half old, and I have COVID. Like, this is a disaster. And thank God she was in the incubator and I had a mask on. We both had to quarantine from her. I was 10 days, Rob was 16 because he didn't have it at the same time. Thankfully, the nurses were so sweet. They're treating her in full ISO suits, so they're head to toe orange gowns and 3 pairs of gloves and masks and shields and everything, and they're
This
in
is
there on Christmas
December.
morning.
This is December 2021.
21, yeah, she's a month and a half old, holding an iPad so we can FaceTime with her and introduce her to the dogs on Christmas morning, right? And thankfully, she was really stable and healthy for those 10 days because I don't know what I would have done if she had been ill and I couldn't
Crisis
have been next
or
to
yeah,
her.
yeah.
Yeah, but
This is her
we
first Christmas. Is
yeah,
you can't be with her.
yep,
Oh,
I know. And there are lots of firsts that we didn't get. We tried for 7 years to have a baby. I never had a newborn because the entire time she was a newborn, she was on a ventilator and sedated. And in order to hold her, it took a team of nurses to get her up and move her in the equipment. And you had to hold perfectly still while you're holding her because she's like 3 pounds and there's this tiny little tube in her throat. And if she moves it, no air. You just live in that. This is absolutely the scariest thing that's ever happened. And it's just Tuesday afternoon for you.
this is the first time you heard pulmonary vein stenosis.
So it was in April 2022, and we had tried twice to get her off the ventilator at that point. I remember the neonatologist saying, there's really no reason that she shouldn't be successful off the ventilator. Her settings are not that high. We need to figure out what's going on. And there was a family who had a baby across the hall, came over to our house for dinner one evening, and we were going, okay, tomorrow we're going to have an EKG. They were going to do like 5 different things, an echo, an EKG, a bronchoscopy, and figure out sort of what it was that was causing her to be unsuccessful off the vent. We're going around the room going, what do you think's wrong with Lily? And everybody was like, oh, I think it's just we're going to find she maybe needs a course of antibiotics and we're going to be fine. And Rob gets to me and I said, I think it's something really tiny and really hard to diagnose, and I think it's gonna be really scary, and we're gonna be really lucky if they catch it. And that is probably my gallows sense of humor, but everybody in that room went quiet and looked at me and was like, "Why would you say that out loud?" And 3 days later, they march in and they're like, "Oh, we figured out why she's not successful off the vent." And I'm like, "Okay, why?" And they're like, "Well, she has pulmonary vein stenosis." And I'm going, "Okay, what are we gonna do about it?" Crickets. I'm like, Okay, what do we do about it?" And they're like, "Well, we've gotten okay at managing it." And everybody just has this face on. We're going to have a large meeting with all of the pulmonary doctor and with cardiology, and we'll talk about what it means and how we want to approach it. I don't remember if somebody told me it was mild or if I had just assumed it was mild because nobody seemed super worried. But then the next day, when we had this larger meeting, it was like, okay, she has really severe pulmonary vein stenosis. I remember they were going to schedule her for a cath, and then they didn't because there were 3 people that were potentially there to do it, and 2 of them were in Europe on sabbatical and 1 had COVID. So they had to cancel it and push it and cancel it and push it. I think it happened twice, and I was in process of getting her transferred to Boston. I had gotten a second opinion and set up a consult and talked to the transfer coordinator, and it was just like, if that's the only place she can get treatment, then that's what we're gonna have to do. And of course, the doctor who had COVID recovered from COVID and did the cath, which lasted like 6 hours. It was so long. And I remember him coming out of the OR and going, I don't know how she was stable because she was stable and she was on fairly low settings. Like she was on 21% oxygen and not a whole lot of pressure. Her right upper pulmonary vein was basically closed, and the 2 left were really stenotic. And he was like, I had to do multiple approaches with the little needle and then balloon, budge it open and then balloon a little bit, budge a little further and balloon a little bit. And he managed to get all 3 of them open and place 3 stents in right upper and left upper and lower. After that day, boom, she's on 21% oxygen with even lower PEEP settings. It was amazing the difference it made.
PVS wasn't at all on your radar, isn't on my radar. Like, if you're missing a ventricle, that's
Mhm.
pretty obvious.
Yeah, nobody.
On their bingo card going into the delivery room, going, we're gonna end up with pulmonary vein stenosis.
Well, I think also it's so small, which is just gotta be like operating on a hamster or something to deal with putting Like putting a cutting balloon in those babies' veins when they're that little and those veins are that little. Like, I do have the measurement of her vein that it was now 2 millimeters after they put the stent in. Like, 2 millimeters? I can't
How
even
did
see
she
that.
remind me again how old she is at this point?
So her cath happened on NICU day 176. So
Almost
she's
6
6 months
months.
old.
Yeah, yeah, yes.
Yeah, 6, 7 months old. Her cath lasted a really long time. Like, I have my hourly notes where they call you once an hour and give you an update. And, it when they got back to the SICU, the cardiac ICU, it was my first experience in a cardiac ICU, which is the scariest place on earth. I mean, absolutely, right? There's nowhere scarier.
I feel like I don't have a good measure of comparison because we barely spent 2 weeks in the NICU. We've only been in cardiac units, almost exclusively. So 2 casts ago, they actually recovered Summer in the pediatric ICU, the PICU.
Mhm.
That was our first we'd never been in a PICU before. Like,
I
because
think we've only been in a PICU once, like, for 1 or 2
okay,
nights.
especially home hospital, like,
Mhm.
our home hospital PICU, there's no way they're touching Summer. Like, they're like,
Yeah.
"No, she's gotta
Get
go to the
away.
cardiac unit. No way, we're not taking that kid."
Alright, so we'd been in the NICU for 176 days at this point, so we're feeling
But this
pretty
is
pretty
home.
comfortable with
That's
it.
and
Yeah,
that's your home. Yeah, I get
yeah.
it.
So we go to the cardiac ICU, and the cardiac ICU for the most critical patients, they're organized in pods, at least at CHOP. So it's this large area of space with 4 babies and 4 nurses. The room has basically only 3 walls because the fourth wall is open to the hall. So when there's an emergency, it's really easy to get a lot of people and equipment in there. There's a lot of room for emergency ECMO to be set up or additional people to run in and do whatever it is that they need to do. I didn't realize this, but if you have an open heart surgery, they'll leave them open for
Yeah,
the swelling to go down.
yeah, no, we called it the Saran wrap.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you're
or
walking,
that.
you're going to see your kid, and the 3 other babies sharing are open.
Yep. Glad you walked me through that because
Oh.
the only cardiac units we've been in locally in Boston and in Chicago, it's
Mhm,
all private rooms. So Summers had open heart surgery. She also could not be sutured up.
mhm.
But we always knew pretty early on, like at 6 days old, she got diagnosed like, hey, she's got kind of Swiss cheese essentially between the ventricles. So the VSD was multiple ventricular septal defects. And there was one in particular, they were like, we're gonna keep an eye on it, but we're pretty sure it's big enough that we're not gonna be able to fix it with a cath.
Yeah.
What we didn't know at that time, at 6 days old, our local home hospital is telling us, oh, these are really run-of-the-mill septal defects. We'll go in, we'll close them. She'll be an Olympic athlete. Life will be good. And
Mhm,
then through Echo, which also throw out an interesting little symposium data point, 50%, I think I heard a physician share, 50% of PVS cases are missed on Echo.
mhm.
So if your kid gets caught with PVS on an echo, go give your cardiologist a hug because,
Yeah.
like you said, I mean, it's like operating on a hamster. These vessels are
Mhm,
so tiny. And I think they talked about this a little bit at the symposium, but there's certainly ample room for inequity in this space because if you don't have a good enough echo machine and a good enough sonographer and a good enough cardiologist to really catch this early, like by
mhm.
the time they caught it in Lily and by the time they caught it in Summer, the disease had spread to all of her vessels,
Yeah.
right? In both cases, right? Severe pulmonary vein disease. Summer has 5 vessels, I assume, based on her. Lily has 5, based
She
on.
has 4 now, not counting the one that closed, so 4.5, 3.5,
Yeah.
something, I don't know. And that was in February, so it's probably changed again because we lost the upper left in late fall last year, so by February, she had developed a new one, but it's sort of a collateral vein that is going into the lower left vein, which is just increasing the strain on the lower left vein, so it may need another stent
Okay.
as we go forward.
Yeah. But I can't imagine. It's traumatic enough. Like you see the morale of the physicians and the nurses is getting depleted because they're just fighting a losing battle with some of these kiddos, PVS and non-PVS alike. That's difficult. I can't imagine being in a shared room experience as a
Well,
whole
this
nother element.
the NICU, we had private, quote unquote, private room there, it's only wall until about hip high and then it's glass so that nurses can see,
Yep, yep,
everybody's.
that's what yep,
Oh,
that's
okay.
private.
Yeah.
Yep, right.
Um, the cardiac ones in the cardiac ICU there are some private rooms for, older kids or kids that are a little more stable, but when you're really critical. And when Lily came back from her first cath, her hemoglobin was 4 and her blood pressure was 16, 16. And I just remember I walked up to her and I looked at her and I looked at the nurse and I said, "She's too pale. She needs blood. She needs blood right now." Because it doesn't, she's had a billion transfusions at this point. I knew exactly what was wrong. And they're like, "We know we called for blood." And I just remember being like close to panicking because she's white, like absolutely white. And I'm going, "I'll go get the blood." It never like, it doesn't occur to you, well, they're not going to let me walk down there. Like, come, here's your bucket of blood, right?
The blood.
But I'm like, "I'll go get it." And I have this mental image of it. And I'm just sitting there holding her feet, going, oh God, where's the blood? Where's the blood? And then the blood came and we got it back up. But they used a lot of fluid during the cath and a lot of, contrast and everything. And she was much sicker than she let on.
It's so funny you said that because I was just talking to Summer's case manager at our insurance
Yeah.
company. I was like, Summer is a cat. She will hide how sick she is, like
Yeah.
for her own detriment.
Mhm.
But she is just not going to show you until it's too late, right?
Mhm.
Do not trust her. Do not,
Yep.
do not think she's stable.
And you said that she had a pulmonary hypertensive crisis in front of one of her new doctors when you switched teams at one point. You were like, "That's good," because they knew not to trust her. And thankfully at CHOP, it's been the same doctors because there's more than once that he's walked out of the cath lab and been like, "I have no idea how she was stable."
Yep.
Yeah. It's wild what these kids do. It's just like, "No, I'm fine, cool. Thanks."
Yeah. Lily didn't need open heart surgery, right?
Did not need open
Give
heart
her
surgery. She had her, oh my God, what is it? I wanna call it a PVS, but that's not right. It's the She had her PDA
kick.
included.
Yep.
Yeah, oh my god. So they had to do it with a thoracotomy and not via cath because she kept going septic, and we were concerned that it was gonna become like a crush of bacteria to have the little spring in her PDA. So she had it occluded, but it's not inside the pericardial sac, so it's not actually open heart surgery. They do a cut around here and then open your ribs, but she has a killer scar from that. It was definitely affecting her. And we thought for a while that was probably where the issues with the increased ventilator settings were coming from, but wasn't that.
Well, and I don't know enough about PDAs, but they're basically a form of septal defect, right? Like kind
Mhm.
of like you're creating like this
So
excess flow.
I don't know if you can quote me on this because it's been a while, but a PDA doesn't really engage and close until you're born because there's no need for it to be closed while you're sharing a circulatory system with your mother. But after you're born, it needs to close in order to keep your blood pressure high enough, because otherwise there'll be some of that exchange. So hers didn't close. It was really big and it just never closed. And we tried a couple of drug therapies. I think you can use ibuprofen to try because it's a mild vasoconstrictor. So we tried a couple of things and it didn't work. So we had to go in and do it.
Everything I learned about PDAs was on the show Outlander. And one of like I feel like every episode we should reconfirm that we are not medical professionals.
Yeah.
Um, tell me,
Not.
so she has this first cath, she gets very
Mhm,
sick, you get your first entry into the cardiac ICU world.
mhm, yeah. And the funniest part about it is that so when you're in the NICU and you're somewhere like CHOP, there's a huge demand for that space, right? So like you leave the NICU and you go to the cardiac ICU and they give your room away immediately because there are many babies who need it. We had been there for so long and we had so much crap in her room. And I don't remember if it was the first or the second cath, but her night nurse came in and was like, "What is all this?" And we were like, "That's her stuff." And she was like, her stuff? And I was like, yeah, like her outfits and she just lost her mind because all the babies are so sick that they can't wear clothes. And Lily was like, okay, I can wear clothes. I think she changed her outfit like 3 times that night just because she was like doing bedscapes. So cute. The first time that she was really okay after a calf, the next morning, she woke up and she's kicking and moving around, and the nurse in the cardiac ICU is like, "I'll get morphine." And I'm like, "Why? Why?" And he goes, "Well, she's awake." And I was like, "Yeah, she just
Yeah.
wants to play." And I set up her little play bar and she's smacking at toys and banging her feet on her footy piano. And it was just like, this one baby making this racket and 3 other babies having the worst day of their life, and it's just so weird to be there because you wanna be joyful with your kid and you're so worried for these other babies and their families. Oh my god.
That's what makes it so hard. The constant cats with PVS, like when we leave,
Mhm.
it's always a little awkward, like, all right,
See you soon.
have a
Hopefully
great
not.
life. And we're like,
Yeah.
well, we'll be back in,
Yeah.
4 months, whatever it is now, right? I think that's what makes it unique. It is a chronic condition. Like the
Mhm.
physician who told you, well, we're getting better at managing it.
Well, uh, after that, and they had this is what it is, and this is what you're gonna be dealing with conversation with us. We'd gotten real close to a bunch of the nurses, and I started asking them, "Oh, have you taken care of a baby with PVS before?" And I think 3 of them had, and none of the babies had gone home. So learning that was also just like, "Oh my god, what are we dealing with?" But I think that she was diagnosed 2 years, 18 months after sirolimus and frequent CAS has started to show some real promise. So that's what we jumped in with all the way. They immediately got her on sirolimus. The stents they put in her were drug-eluting, and then we started doing caths, and at first, it was every 4 to 6 weeks, and that was probably the first year, and you get to know all the nurses in the cardiac prep and recovery, the CPRU, and they're like, "I'll walk you back," and you're like, "No need, I got this." And then a new person starts and they're like, "Oh, I'll walk you to the cardiac floor." And you're like, "That's really okay. I got this." So we start doing the cats, and I guess we're doing them every 4 to 6 weeks. And yeah, and then it just started spreading out and getting a little bit longer between them. And then we went too long last fall and lost our upper left. And we were doing monitoring and echoing and stuff, and it didn't really seem as bad as it was until he got in there to intervene and it couldn't be saved. So we're scoping out what the new landscape looks like without that vein. One of the things that really freaked me out about the symposium is they mentioned that getting a really bad respiratory illness can sometimes kick the disease into progressing again. And Lily just started preschool 2 months ago, and she has been sick for almost 2 full months. In fact, she went to her pulmonary appointment today and got prescribed a new type of inhaler. We've been doing a budesonide and albuterol inhaler through her nebulizer twice a day, every morning and every evening. And she's gonna get a course of antibiotics because I think it might have progressed into some kind of a bronchitis because she's just got this cough that will not stop. After the symposium, I walked up to Heather, who's the PVS manager lady at CHOP. Sorry, Heather, if you listen to this. I don't know what your actual title is, but when I have a question, that's who I message on my job. And I was like, "Heather, we've had a respiratory virus for 2 months. When are we getting our imaging?" And it's like early May, but I'm getting nervous because she really has been sick for 2 months. When you deal with Lily, it's really easy to forget that she's a PVS kid and that one push can have such intense repercussions. Like, we just increased her sirolimus dose from zero point 0.2 mils, and I can't believe how high Summer's dose is.
Oh, we just bumped up to 1.0.
Oh my god, Lily, literally, it's like this much. It's this much. It's like a quarter of an inch in the tiny little syringe,
What can I
and
say?
it's
The women in my family, we like our meds. I don't.
apparently we're like delicate little fairies or
But,
something. I
like,
don't know,
they're
but, like,
the therapeutic level is what it
yeah, the
is, and
same.
that's what
Yeah,
gets
Lily's is
Summer.
8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Summer was actually low. We were like 5.5. They
Mhm.
want her like 6 to 10. And so, yeah, now we'll probably end up overshooting again. It's like
Mhm.
we need like 0.95 is probably the magic dose. But of course, the stupid syringes for the
Yeah.
zero, the syrupy, annoying zero with the bubbles. And
Oh, I have a strategy. I like pull, flip, push, shake, draw slowly, but it's such a tiny little dose that it sneaks around the bubbles.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so, let's do this. Like, we're gonna give some Zero administration advice.
Yeah.
I just put the bottle on the counter and I draw up and I draw over the amount, like with the
Mhm,
bubble. We don't use a full bottle, right? You're disposing of the bottle at 30 days. We
mhm.
don't use a full bottle in that time. So basically, I draw up, I let the bubble sit at the top, I flip it upside down, I let it sit on the counter, I go about my business and do a couple other things. Then I come back, the bubble's at the top, I push it through
Mhm.
onto a paper towel.
Brilliant.
There we go.
Brilliant.
We've all got our methods. You have to use the stupid syringes because this stuff is like maple syrup.
I buy syringes on Amazon. I
Like
do.
special Zero syringes?
Nope, just little ones, like all sizes, but I don't remember what they're called, but I like them. They have blue writing on them. Oh my God, I'm sorry, my dog is the worst. Look at the picture I just texted you. That is a baby who is wide as she is tall.
Can we talk about tube feeding and how we
God.
in these kids, like, yes, they need to gain weight, but my goodness.
So
Yep, I have some pictures of Summer exactly like that, where like Kurt and I like, oh, that was her really, really chubby phase. Oh yeah.
yeah, she was like Cartman. Um,
When
so
did that happen? Like for Summer, she didn't start gaining like that until she got a J tube.
no. So it turns out like all right, every time in the NICU they would start feeding her and she'd be doing well with breast milk and the dietitian would roll in and go, "Oh, we really need her to gain more weight, so we're going to fortify her milk." Every time she would get neck within 24 hours. And the third time I was like, "Listen, no more fortification. When you pump, the first part of the milk is the real watery part, but the hind milk, which is the last third of your pump, has the most fat in it." I'm like, "I will pump and I will throw away the first third of my pump." So at this point, it is January 2022. I am recovering from COVID. I have a baby in the NICU, and I am not doing anything except pumping. And Rob, who is my pit crew through this whole thing, is like bringing me snacks and water, and here's the part of the milk, and he's just like throwing it away because he's like, "I can't even deal with this right now, I'm too tired." So we're giving her hind milk and the dietitian is like, "It's not going to have enough calories in it." So I made them test my milk to figure out how many calories were in my milk.
Good for you.
Was like 35 calories an ounce or something. It was the average is like 22 and mine was like 10 more than that. And I'm like, yes, I am making cream. I'm a
Yeah.
literal dairy cow. So this is literally just breast milk.
Wow.
Yeah, you know how you
And
go
it's
those
is it tube fed? Is she getting
it
tube?
was she had a nasal an
Oh
NG
yeah,
tube at
duh,
this
it's
point.
in the picture. Yep, yep.
Yeah, she had an NG tube and she was just getting breast milk. And it's so funny because the NICU, they're just like, get as fat as possible. And then after 285 days in the CHOP NICU, they sent us to complex care. And Rob and I would trade off every 2 or 3 days. It's like, who has the most important meetings today? Okay, somebody else stay with Lily. And, we just were in her room 24/7. The only time we left was when we went to get food.
I definitely want to touch on a topic before we wrap up,
Oh, God.
because in the medically fragile, disabled world, so often moms have to step out of work, right? I was laid off for the first time in my career early on in Summer Story. So Summer's born in May, started
Mhm.
treatment in August in Boston, back and forth. December, my
Oh, God.
position is eliminated. I
That
was very
sucks.
angry at the time, but
Yeah.
now I can look back with clear eyes and go, that was the right thing because I was trying so hard. I was supposed to go back from maternity leave when we had to start treatment in Boston. So
Mm.
came to an agreement. I'll work part-time, like 20 hours a week, and then work back into it. By November, that was not panning out. She was very sick. I was like, I need to take like a 4 week leave of absence. I'm out of FMLA. Like it was just a mess.
Yeah.
How did you work?
There's no way I would have been able to keep working if my work hadn't been so flexible.
Yeah.
And I work for Ernst& and Young, and after she was born, I took a couple of weeks to recover, and they let me defer the rest of my maternity leave, which I wasn't gonna be able to use it, there's no point, but when she came home, I would need it. And at this point, they
You
tell
had no clue it was gonna be, like,
no,
a year
no,
later.
absolutely no. So I went to my team after a little while and I was like, I don't know what I need to do. I need to be with her. Like, your hope is that, okay, we get through this and then she comes home around her due date. So I'm thinking, okay, a few weeks. When it became clear that it was really going to be a much longer haul, I had a meeting with them and they were like, if you can, flexibly work, that's fine. We don't mind where you are. And if you need to take vacation for some of this, if you need to, take a leave, we can explore what that looks like. And they let me defer my maternity leave until she came home from the hospital. And then when I went back to work after maternity leave, I had actually been suggested for and interviewed for a new role. So I came out of maternity leave into a new job altogether, still at Ernst& and Young. And I remember that first couple of months, I think that spring, she was admitted because she had outgrown her dose of diuretics. So she got fluid overloaded and we didn't realize it. And she was having trouble keeping her sats up. So we were in for like almost a week. And I was in the middle of this huge work project. And I remember sitting in a room in the cardiac care unit on a video call with the CEO of Ernst& and Young, walking him through something that we were putting together for him. And I'm like, my baby is there. There's a physical therapist working with her, and I'm sitting in the cardiac care unit having a video call. But it didn't really hit me as like, wow, this is weird because for the entire year before, I'd been like joining calls and people are going, Lindsay, what is that behind you? And I'm like, oh, this is a ventilator. Let me tell you what, all these settings mean. And they're like, why are you on a call? And I'm like, well, I mean, what else am I going to do? She's
Well,
asleep. She's sleeping 90% of the time. I'm in this room because when she wakes up, I want to pay attention to her, but I can do this. So it worked. And if they hadn't been that flexible, there's no way that I could have kept working. And when she was coming home and Rob and I were doing this sort of like, what are we going to do? Are you going to cut down to part time? Am I going to cut back to part time? In the state of Pennsylvania, every baby gets state insurance as secondary insurance. And the secondary insurance covers things like home nursing, which her doctor prescribed because at first she was incredibly sick and she absolutely needed a nurse to be there with her all the time. And now she still has the nurse because of a couple of things that are lingering. And in the state of Pennsylvania, she qualifies because of her birth weight and then because of her additional diagnoses. So she will continue to have it as long as she's diagnosed with PVS. And that allows her to have nursing. And because she has nursing, we can both work. If she didn't have nursing, one of us would have had to quit.
yeah.
And
So
we,
that insurance is generally called Katie Beckett. Our county social worker was like, you should apply for this. Not
mhm,
every state has it. The state of Minnesota, it's called Tefra. In Wisconsin, it's called Katie Beckett. So there's different versions of it. If your kid has PVS, you should get it.
you need it,
Or
yes.
you should apply for it. It
Mhm.
definitely helps. We're in a similar situation with nursing. That's why I have been able to go back to work. But Summer's needs are still great enough that, I mean, we're still in a lot of it. I think Lily's been able to space her caths out a little bit more. I mean, obviously, like the last one, not great, like maybe spaced them
Yeah,
too far, but we just got to our first 16-week interval.
that's so cool,
Uh,
isn't it?
we're,
I love that.
I think we're gonna go for 20-ish. The next
Ah!
one hasn't been set, but that's what we're going for. You adjust and adapt, and these kids are really incredible and so resilient and
Yeah, it's wild. It's absolutely wild. Like, eh, all the things that have happened to her, everything she's been through, you would never know it. She loves going to the doctor. She gets so excited. She wants to take your blood pressure. She wants to pretend she's taken blood from you. She's just happy with everything, man. It blows my mind every day what she's been through, and I am scared for what she's gonna have to go through, but I am incredibly grateful that we have the team we have, that we live where we do. Like, I couldn't have planned it better to move to a state that has the health insurance that it has and the benefits for her that it has and the hospital.
Yeah, you don't think about stuff like that, but it is interesting. I've taken a lot from like building this sense of community, through social media. Like, oh, that's my social media mom friend. That's my friend Lindsay, like,
I'm glad you're doing it 'cause, like, just bringing positivity and conversation to it is hugely important.
you know, Summer was so sick in Boston and my work had evaporated, right? So I just threw myself in. You talked earlier about I just became work Lindsay,
Mhm.
and that's how I treat. And I was like, okay, the universe is telling me that it's time to just focus on Summer, and this is my job right now. And I did that until about mid-April. I was like, okay, I'm kind of hungry for something that is not life and death decision every day, right? Work to me has been like this outlet to like remember the other part of yourself, but also not, again, not life and death, right? Like
Mhm.
stuff that we do. You're not a physician, I'm not a physician, I'm not saving anybody's life today.
Oh,
But
no.
I remember I got introduced. So I picked up a little bit of freelance work through a couple contacts. One was a former boss, is great. And then I was like, I really want to do something in this space, right? Like I've spent the last year learning cardiology. And so I had a friend at Boston Scientific. He and I worked together years ago. I was like, hey, Brian, let's connect. So he and I connected maybe like in June, and he made an intro to a woman who led the cardiology communications for Boston Scientific. And I remember that day, Summer was so sick. Like, we're having conversations with palliative care about can we continue treating her? Like, is it ethical to continue to? I mean, at
Mhm.
this point, she'd been in the hospital for 3 months straight. Like, she was just so sick. And I remember I almost canceled. I was like, I shouldn't take this call today. Like, what am I doing? And honestly, I took the call because I thought if Summer dies, I'm gonna like choke up right now.
Oh, god.
Like I thought if Summer dies, I need something to tether me to this world. Not that
Mhm.
like obviously with my husband and friends and family and like whatever, but like I was so mentally screwed up that I was like, well, I should take this call because in case Summer dies, then now I can get back to work.
Mhm.
Like that's
No,
literally the mindset I had
I've
going to
I've
this
been there.
call.
No, I've been there. Like, there was one night she was so sick, and they kept calling, and, in the NICU, they'd call you if the baby codes or if certain other things happen, and they just kept calling, like, "This is happening, and she's decreasing, and we're adding this, and this is happening, and this is decreasing, and we're adding this." And I was like, "I better start watching a movie just in case I need something real to do." So it's 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm sitting in bed watching National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, and they called to tell me that she'd coded, and then they called to tell me that she'd coded again. And I was, like, in bed. I don't know why I didn't go to the hospital. I'm not clear on this since I think Rob slept through both of them. And I remember that moment, like, what is gonna keep me here if she dies? Like, I have nothing. And yeah,
No, it's
yeah,
like obviously like,
logically, you have your husband and the rest of your family and dogs and cats, but it's just yeah, I
yep.
feel you.
I ended up getting an amazing 1 year freelance job through like it
Yeah.
was like the universe was like, take this meeting, take this meeting. And then we transfer to Chicago, air ambulance. She starts to get better. We finally come home. Nursing kind of starts to come together, like, oh, we're
Mhm.
gonna have nurses, okay. And then it was like the perfect, do you want to work like 10 to 15 hours a week covering a maternity leave for an entire 12 months?
Oh my
Yes,
god,
yes, I
yes.
will do that. Thank you.
Awesome.
Like, thank you
Okay.
for giving me something to do.
Yeah.
Advocating for my daughter is the greatest blessed. Like, it is a job I take great pride in.
Mhm.
But it's still like it still feels too real sometimes. Like you just need to do work. I had 2 decades plus of work experience before we welcomed Summer to this world, right? Like there's
Mhm.
just this sense of normalcy that comes with even working in a part-time capacity for me.
But also it's like it's really calmed me down a lot because I work in consulting and there's emergencies every single day. It's kind of funny, like just the way that my approach to things has changed from my experience focusing on Lily's care
Yep.
as, my primary job. And
I would be like, yeah, this is an emergency. All hands on deck. And now you're like, oh my God, that's like not, we
yeah.
get through this. It will be fine. What is the crisis for?
Mhm. Yep, I'm still a perfectionist, but I'm not gonna freak out anymore. It's gonna be all right. We'll figure it out.
I consider myself a recovering perfectionist now. Okay, so what are all the things that you're grateful for, right? Obviously, it just kills you anytime you hear of a PVS kid passing, right? There's guilt associated with it,
Yeah.
and there is like you're questioning what time do you have with your child. But on the other side, I have seen so many beautiful things in humanity that I think I would have never been exposed to without having gone through this, right? I
Mhm.
mean, the things that people will do when they see summer, or like, I get people all the time, they're like, my mom still asks every time I talk to her about how is summer doing. I think our children bring a lot of hope for other people, and they bring out the best in other people in this really amazing way.
Yeah, absolutely. It just has shocked me when I've met people that are like friends with my mother-in-law or, tangential friends of other people and they're like, "Oh my God, how's Lily?" And I'm like, "Wow, okay, amazing. That is so cool." But one thing that I really didn't expect, I felt a lot of support from like the medical and special need kids community. But
Yeah.
as soon as she got off oxygen, it stopped. Like, if I was in a lobby at CHOP and she was on oxygen, there was another kid who was also on oxygen or was in a wheelchair, it was like I had a camaraderie with that mom.
Yep.
And I still feel it and they don't because my kid doesn't have a visible
Yep.
medical thing. You know, after she came off oxygen, that sort of second step from the other parent just stopped happening
Yep.
because it's like, "Oh, you're a mom with a normal kid, okay." And it's like, "No, I'm really not, you know, really not." You and I are in it. We know the terms, we know what it does, we've seen the images, the doctors have drawn it for us, we understand it. And it's kind of funny, we're at the symposium and Dr. Frank showed a slide that had 2 images on it, and one was a cross section of a vein and the other was a lateral cross section of the vein. And it showed how the stenosis grows by having the stenosis cells were green on the image. Like the green stuff shouldn't be here
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
And I took a picture of the slide and sent it around, and no matter how many times I've drawn it, I'm showing it to people and they're going, "Oh my god, I had no idea that's what was happening." Like, just that image and that display of it, even for the people who have spoken to every day of this, or like, I never knew because I never saw it displayed like that. And it's wild to me that people love us so much that they are still this supportive and part of our circle
Yeah.
and still don't really get it. It's wild. Rare
It's
diseases are wild.
like this hope and blind faith.
Yeah.
All right, so that concludes my conversation with Lindsay Hughes. Thanks again, Lindsay, and also thanks to Misha, who helped me launch this series, and I look forward to sharing more really soon. In the meantime, thanks for listening.